In the 1940s, Bernard dreamed of becoming a banker despite many obstacles. He and his partner Joy faced big challenges but worked hard to succeed in real estate. Watch how Bernard's courage and clever ideas changed everything for him and others. In 1940, Texas was a place of conflict between black and white people. Black people had many troubles, like not being able to talk freely or do their own work. They often had to work for white people, and losing their homes was a big problem for them. Bernard, a young black man, had big dreams. He polished shoes in front of banks, not just for money, but because he wanted to become a banker himself. He hoped to open his own bank and run his own business. Even though he couldn't go to a big college because of his race, he learned as much as he could. He took notes from what he overheard about banking and the bank manager's talks. One day, Bernard was caught while he was doing this. His father told him that his dreams were too big and that they might fall apart. Bernard was determined to make his dreams come true. 15 years later, Bernard was living in Los Angeles with his wife and son. In Los Angeles, black people faced less discrimination than in Texas, so Bernard decided to start his business there. He stayed with relatives when he first arrived, but promised his wife that he would soon buy their own house. The next day, Bernard explored all of Los Angeles to find houses for sale that he could buy. He saw that black neighborhoods were crowded, with two families often sharing one house. Meanwhile, there were many empty houses in white neighborhoods. Bernard got an idea. He thought it would be a great chance to buy a house in a white area and sell it to black families. He found a building with many apartments that was in poor condition because no one lived there. Bernard met with the building's owner and offered to buy it for $35,000 in cash and $5,000 more when all the apartments were rented. The owner didn't want to take the risk. During their conversation, Bernard noticed a plaque the owner had received from a bank manager. Bernard decided to visit the bank to talk to the manager. However, manager's secretary, who didn't like black people, refused to set up a meeting for Bernard. Bernard waited outside the bank for hours until the manager came out. He approached the manager and explained that he knew potential customers and that a loan from the bank would benefit both the manager's customers and himself. Despite Bernard's pitch, the manager refused without giving it much thought. That night, Bernard received a call from the businessman he had tried to get a loan from earlier. The businessman asked about Bernard's situation. Bernard knew he had made a mistake, so he apologized. To Bernard's surprise, the businessman was not upset. Instead, he praised Bernard for his persistence and said he was willing to guarantee Bernard's loan. Bernard was overjoyed. For the first time, he secured a bank loan, which he used to invest in real estate and buy a building. While Bernard was renovating the building with a colleague, an old lady came by and got angry. She asked what they were doing there. Bernard calmly explained that he was working on the building. The old lady told him to be careful and not to ruin anything. Bernard assured her that he would take good care of it. The old lady left. Soon after, the police arrived. They told Bernard that the old lady had reported him, claiming that he had no right to the building because it was in a white community. Bernard had prepared for this and showed the police all the legal documents proving the building was his. The police believed him and left. A few days later, Bernard returned to the building with a lamp. The old lady asked, "What time is this?" She was surprised by the renovation work. Bernard calmly told her that he was not a worker, but the owner of the building. After hearing this, the old lady fell for Bernard. A few days passed, and the old lady moved out because she didn't want to live with black people. She gave her apartment to a non-black lady. Bernard knew that the market for black people in Los Angeles was large. Soon, all the apartments in his building were rented out. Bernard paid back the building's owner and also cleared his bank loan. The building owner was impressed with Bernard and offered him a chance to do business together. Bernard eagerly accepted the offer. With the investment, they bought another building, renovated it, and rented it out. In the real estate market, Bernard's white business partner took the lead. There were no issues doing business with him, and they split the profits equally. Bernard used his earnings to buy a beautiful mansion where he moved in with his family. Despite his success, he knew that life would continue to bring challenges. Years later, Bernard's business partner passed away, and his shares went to his wife. She didn't like black people and wanted Bernard to sell his shares for a low price or face a lawsuit. Bernard knew the judge might side with her because of the racial bias, but he refused to sell. To win the case, Bernard needed someone who knew about his deal with the partner. He thought of the bank manager who had given him a loan. Bernard went to see him, but found that the manager had already met with the widow. Feeling helpless, he had a new idea. Why not buy the building where these banks were located? This would show them how they mistreated him, but he didn't have enough money. Bernard then met a wealthy real estate businessman from Los Angeles who was also black. He presented his proposal to buy the bank building. At first, the businessman laughed, thinking Bernard was crazy due to the high price and the rarity of a black person buying such valuable land. Bernard explained his plan, including how he would buy the land and make a profit. After hearing Bernard's ideas, Joy realized Bernard was smart, not just emotional. Bernard explained that if they bought the bank building, all the banks there would work for them, making it easier to get investments and advance their real estate business. Joy was impressed by Bernard's idea. He admitted that although he had a lot of money, he had never thought such a plan. He had always worked for white people, but now wanted to work with Bernard. However, they had a problem. If they bought the property, they needed a white person to communicate with the white community. Bernard assured Joy that he had someone for that. Bernard had a white associate who was honest and hardworking. Bernard and Joy trained him in high-class manners, golf, and real estate business practices. The associate quickly learned how to play golf and handle real estate calculations. Joy arranged a meeting for the associate to impress the building owner. The meeting was successful, and they had a chance to buy the building. The associate was worried because he felt unprepared for future tasks. Bernard reassured him and promised to teach him everything. That night, Bernard counted the lights in the building and calculated the number of offices and spaces. He shared these figures with the associate and explained how to keep track of them without confusion. The next day, when Mast had a meeting with the businessman, they discussed the building's progress. Mast stayed ahead of the figures provided by the businessman's accountant, which impressed the businessman. He agreed to sell the building. After buying the building, Bernard and Joy became very strong in their position. A small bank manager in the building had made things difficult for Bernard, but he noticed that all the bank presidents in the building greeted him warmly. With the support of these banks, Bernard and Joy's real estate business grew rapidly. Their efforts helped reduce discrimination against black people in Los Angeles. Black people could now buy homes more easily, and business opportunities increased. Many buildings were created where black and white people lived together. Bernard and Joy made such progress that the white city president visited them and took pictures. After this success, Bernard returned to Texas to visit his parents. His father was proud of him. Bernard took his son to the bank where he had once polished shoes. He saw a child there polishing white people's shoes, not black people's, as white people were respected. Seeing the ongoing discrimination and humiliation of black people made Bernard very sad. He decided to fight against this discrimination and asked Joy to help him buy a bank building in Texas. At first, Joy thought Bernard had lost his mind, but Bernard showed him how much profit he could make from buying the bank. Joy agreed to the deal. To handle the negotiations with the white owners, Joy chose Mast. Mast went to talk to the building's owners. There were two, a senior and a junior. The senior owner had no issues with selling the building, but the junior owner was hesitant. After buying the bank building, Bernard and Joy also bought the bank. They started giving loans to black people easily. They could buy property, start businesses, and succeed like white people. Everything was going well until the junior owner checked the bank's loan detail. He was shocked to see that all the loans were given to black people. He confronted Bernard and Joy, threatening to report them for bias. He warned them that the federal department would inspect the bank soon, and they might face jail time if any issues were found. This news brightened Bernard, Joy, and Mast. They were unsure how to solve the problem. Mast suggested buying another bank and moving all the loans there. Although this idea wasn't perfect, it was their only option at the time. Mast ran the new bank, and his lawyer unknowingly signed many loan documents. However, trouble came when Mast learned that federal inspectors were coming to check their new bank. Junior owner had set them up. Bernard, dressed as a worker, went to calm Mast. They discovered that the lawyer had made many mistakes. He had approved many loans without any legal basis. As a result, the bank's license was taken away. Mast then reviewed all the documents and asked how such major errors happened. He learned that the lawyer, chosen by Junior, was the cause of the mistakes. Junior had set everything up from the beginning and used Mast as a pawn to confuse Bernard and Joy. They only had one choice left: leave the bank and move elsewhere. However, Mast did not want to leave his bank. Ignoring Bernard's advice, Mast went to the bank with Bernard. When they arrived, Mast asked for the bank's document. Before they could leave, the FBI showed up and took the documents. The documents were in Bernard and Joy's names, so the FBI arrested them. Later, Bernard and Joy met with their lawyer, who was out on bail for a few days, to help them with their case. The lawyer warned them that it would be tough to win because the judge was likely to favor the white people. Meanwhile, Mast was also arrested but was determined to regain his freedom. To make a deal, Mast met the judge. Judge told him that if he gave a statement against his colleagues, he would be freed. Mast agreed to this. Then Bernard also went to see the judge. The judge offered Bernard a choice: either turn on Mast and stay free, or testify in court and go to jail. Bernard chose to go to court. Next day, Bernard gave his statement in court. He spoke about the struggles of the black community and their fight for rights. After his statement, went to jail, losing everything for his people. His bank was taken over by Junior, and it was worth millions. Mast, being white, faced no charges. Years passed, and finally, Bernard and Joy were set to be released from jail. Bernard's wife came to pick him up. Surprisingly, Bernard was very happy to be out, as if nothing had gone wrong. Joy told Bernard's wife the truth that Bernard had not lost any property. Bernard explained that the night before going to court, Mast, who had testified against him, called to apologize. Instead of accepting the apology, Bernard asked Mast to sell all their property and invest the money elsewhere. Mast did just that, and now Bernard and Joy had a large real estate business that Mast would manage for them. Bernard's life was set to return to normal, and this was how the movie ended.